Now, you asked for details, you keep asking for details of this voice before you make up your mind. That strategy has been useful because it's exposed the government will not provide the details, and details are important. But my question is, what about the fundamental principle? Should we really be dividing Australians by race and say to one of those races, well, you have different political rights to everyone else. You have your own voice to Parliament because your race is so different. How can this possibly be something that you, a Liberal, could support?
Well, Andrew, there's a massive debate obviously going on in relation to Australia Day at the moment that people feel the need to trash part of our history, part of the foundation stone of our country to build up another aspect of our history. We've got a proud Indigenous heritage, we've got a proud British heritage, and people have come from the four corners of the earth to complement that, to make us the great country that we are, the greatest country in the world.
Australia Day in a moment.
I just don't understand.
Australia, Peter Dutton, but my question specifically is the racial division of Australians now to be put in our constitution where one race has different political rights to the others. How can you as a Liberal possibly even think of supporting that? It's not a question of detail. This is about fundamental principle.
Well, Andrew, the point I guess I was going to make was I just don't think we need to pull down one part of who we are as a culture or a people to build up the other. And I think it's equally applicable to Australia Day, to other debates, including in relation to the voice. I think it's important that we hear from a regional voice because there is, as we've demonstrated in Alice Springs and across the Northern Territory, across Western Queensland, far northern Queensland, and parts of WA in particular, parts of South Australia and regional and remote areas there is acute disadvantage. And people do want to see an outcome, a better outcome and a better future for those people.
Disadvantage. There's lots of disadvantage. There's so many Aboriginal groups saying they're doing something about it, 2,700 Aboriginal organisations. You've got more than 30 land councils. You've got 11 federal politicians saying they're Aboriginal, identifying as Aboriginal. You've got I don't know how many different Aboriginal groups. There are so many, and you've still got these problems. It's not about a lack of consultation, but I want to come back to that question again. Forget the details. This is about fundamental principle. A Labor plan to divide Australians by race and giving one side, one race, different political rights to another. As a Liberal, dedicated to everyone being equal before the law, how can you possibly even think about agreeing to something like that? It is not about details, it's about a fundamental principle.
Well, Andrew, for my position, I've been very upfront and honest in relation to my approach. That is that we're going through a discussion now. We're going through trying to obtain all of the detail from the Prime Minister and from the government, and the onus is on the Prime Minister to provide that detail to millions of Australians. If there are fatal flaws, if there are insurmountable issues that we can't get over, then we'll be very clear about that. But I'm considering respectfully all of the information that is there at the moment.
Details are important. Details are important. I agree with you. And you've fleshed out some terrible lack of details from this government, right? My question is about the principle, the racial... This is what a lot of Australian, Liberal supporters don't understand, how the Liberal Party could possibly be playing footsie with a re-racialisation of Australia, a re-tribalisation, a new apartheid even. And a new poll today saying 10%, only 10% of Liberals would say yes to this. We're looking for leadership. No to racism. I don't know why the Liberals can't say that.
Well, Andrew, nobody's in favour of racism in the Liberal Party, and if they are, they don't have a place in our party. So that's the first point. But the point I was making before was that... It doesn't have a place in our constitution. I will make very clear my position in due course. There are a lot of commentators and people who are our supporters and others who were calling for us, demanding that we state a position before the government even made their announcement, when it was mooted that there would be a constitutional referendum. Now, we're in a position where I believe very strongly that we're putting appropriate pressure on the government, which we wouldn't have been able to do had we just raced out of the blocks and declared a position without listening to all of the facts. And I think the Prime Minister would be saying now he's not releasing any detail because Liberals have already made up their mind and other parties have already made up their mind, and therefore they don't deserve the detail. I think by the way in which we have entered this debate, as I say, in a respectful way, we have said on behalf of millions of Australians who may not be as adamant in their position as you are, that they want to hear that information, that they want the detail from the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister is now saying, well, hang on, this is not my idea. This is not my idea as Prime Minister. This is an idea that was just put to us by Indigenous leaders and he committed to at Garma. Well, there are millions of Australians who are on a broad spectrum in terms of their support or not in relation to the Voice, and we're representing those people and we're asking for the detail on their behalf so that they too can make an informed judgment in time.
Yeah, the Voice is not just for the, 3.6 or 7% of the Australians who identify as Aboriginal, it's also for the other 96% plus who aren't. It affects us all and we all have a say.
Of course.
Peter Dutton, thank you so much indeed for your time. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Andrew.